On that note, I would love to have a call back from yesterday, Mr. Mayank Dhingra, who is now the moderator for this panel discussion session. He represents HP. Mayank will be leading a very knowledgeable panel to take the discussions forward. Right now, I see in the on the screen we have Dr. Sumitra Nair, Vice President from Malaysia Digital Economy Corporation, Ms. Hanan Al Hadi, Director of Education Technology from Modern Knowledge Schools, and Isra Osman, the founder for Tech Ogen. We are waiting for Dr. Jalal, and he will from University of Jeddah. He will join us, but I would like to request Mayank to take forward the panel discussion, and I request the our ladies. It's a very female-dominated panel. Mayank, lucky you.
Absolutely.
So I'd request the ladies to turn on your cameras and please unmute when you're given the opportunity to speak. Sir, over to you, Dr. Sumitra. If you can, yeah, exactly, handle your screen. Yeah, great, superb. Thank you very much, Mayank. It's all yours.
Thank you, Fahad. Pleasure to be here, second day in a row. And I think you guys are doing a fabulous job of bringing the really topical subject of what's happening in the future of education to the fore. So kudos on that. And once again, good morning to all the audience members and to, of course, my fellow panel members. It's a pleasure to have you here, Hanan and Dr. Sumitra, and I'm hoping that we will be joined by Dr. Jalal soon. So, as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, education is going through a period of creative destruction, or what economists call Schumpeter's Gale, right? The sector is being assailed by incredible external and internal forces that are really catalyzing innovation and transformation. And one of the immediate impacts has been the digitization of learning pathways. Now, blended learning was an often repeated term, but rarely adopted in practice. That has changed dramatically in the last 6 months. The amalgamation of all these above components of technology and innovation, transformation, creative destruction has created a fertile ground for blended learning to blossom. So in this digital era, teachers have also had to reskill and upskill themselves on ICT know-how. And today we are going to dive a bit deeper into this subject. And I'm going to turn my first question over to Hanan. And Hanan, I'd like to ask you, the teachers have had to morph from being a sage on the stage to a wizard on the web, right? So have teachers really been able to adopt to this new ask of them? What are your views on this?
Okay,
Hanan?
thank you, Mayank. Yeah, I think you're right. It has been a bit of a change and a shift in all aspects of teaching. And I personally use it, being started in education as a teacher, I do sympathize fully with teachers at the moment because of the amount of, there's an overwhelm of PD that is just thrown at them, and they're just, they are just being thrown, deep in the midst of all what's happening, because they are the ones, as you said, they are on the stage. So leaders and other supporters, will just keep providing teachers with lots of training, PD, all these different equipments, and expect them to just teach. And what I found is that the main worry that teacher had was that loss of control over their classroom. So they were not sure, they would think that maybe the kids know more about technology more than me, but it's not really about technology, because the teacher is still, their job is to teach and to facilitate and to coach those students. But the main struggle that I have seen teachers actually starting to now see and go through is to change their expectations from students. So what we used to expect from our students when they were sitting in the classroom is now different, and the collaboration between students and each other, between teacher and student has increased. And I can see that teachers are now starting to realize that there is no one way or the other of doing things. For instance, at the beginning, I remember there was this whole debate about synchronous versus asynchronous. So what should we do? Should we just follow the exact same timetable of the schools, or what are we going? And then by experience and by experimenting, we came to a realization. Teachers actually are the ones who came to that realization that we need to have a blend of both. We can divide the class period into part that is synchronous and another part where there is independent learning that is happening, which is usually required by the students. So I can see that teachers are adapting. The main problem was not really using technology. It was those all other aspects of teaching that has to be done in a different manner. They need to be done in a different way. Having, for instance, dealing with parents, some teachers, they find the parents sitting in front of them on the screen and telling them, why are you saying this to my kid? Or no, my child said the right thing, or something like that. So having to put all these, rules and policies. Now the rules does not just include my students, but includes also the parents who are involved now in the education process. And, just pushing that independent learning approach from students. I think that was one big learning. Changing the way assessments are done. Assessments, is no longer a pen and a paper and someone watching you to see if you have memorized everything. It's now more of a hands-on case study, projects approach. And even with the online proctoring, I still don't see that this is, a real use or a proper use of technology, because I think it's not about just substituting what we used to do on paper and now we find some software to substitute it. It's a deeper application of technology, and how can we actually change and redefine what we are doing. We need to do it in a completely different way.
Thank you, Hanan. I think that was so insightful. I mean, I agree with you. You're right. We had, in the initial phase of the pandemic, we used collaboration tools like Zoom or Teams and put teachers and students in contact with each other. But that was not enough, because obviously we're just creating a virtual space, not really a virtual classroom. So how do you bring everything that was happening in the brick and mortar school into this bytes and pixel environment, and how do you recreate that whole every module that was prevalent in the class? And I think that has been an understanding that it's not just utilizing that software or that collaboration tool, but the whole pedagogy in its entirety is changing. And from that perspective, teachers have to really change themselves also. So, my next question is to Dr. Soumitra. Soumitra, what do you see as the essential digital skills for the 21st century teachers? Do you think it's mastering the operating systems and tools that we just spoke about, or do they really need to master social media or immersive technologies, or is it something else? So I'd love to hear your views on that.
Yeah, like what Hanan was saying, the teacher's role as a facilitator is still there, but there needs to be a rethinking about how the teaching is delivered in a way that is engaging and in a way that is sustainable, right? I think that's where the biggest challenges are. And so, of course, we've heard of all the 21st century skills, and that's a given, right? Now more than ever. Teachers will need to have that. But over and above the usual communications, critical thinking, creativity, over and above that, I think it's important for teachers to develop what I would call digital life skills. Yeah. And these digital, that's what I call it, right? It's like the most essential thing that you need. And it's life skills, it's hygiene, right? To get sort of to continue living and working. And those would be things like social media savviness. That's a digital life skill. You need it, right, to run your life online. Things like, privacy, how do you remain safe online? How do you harness data? Because today, a lot of the learning that's happening with children is, of course, online. And so the amount of data that's being collected is also, I'm sure, significant. Question is, how many of our teachers understand how to even analyze that data, or even thinking about how this data can help them to improve their teaching styles, the performance of the students, and so on. So again, data literacy is another digital life skill that I think people need to have, and teachers even more so, right? So to me, it's the life skills. And then I think most important is a little bit of what Hanan touched on, but I think we all call it the growth mindset. And the ability to learn and relearn and keep expanding the way they think about teaching. Today, many teachers we have in the system have come through a system where they were taught, as you said, pedagogy, right? They were taught this very physical classroom kind of pedagogy, and today it's different, and unfortunately we don't have time to go back and retrain millions of them, to put them through that teacher training again, to say, hey, look, it's going to be a different environment. Unfortunately not. So they're going to have to be quite adept at learning themselves. And I'm sure governments around the world, as it is even in Malaysia, are grappling with this, like, how do we scale this change? How do we retrain teachers in a very short time? So, and that's going to be hard to do. From a public school system, that's going to be really hard to do. And so it really depends now. The onus is on the teacher, kind of. Unfortunately, the onus is on the teacher to have this growth mindset and to be open to these new techniques of, as what Hanan said, not just taking what you used to do in a classroom and now putting that online. That's not going to work, obviously. And so they have to be open. So I think the most critical, I would say, are, as I said, the digital life skills, what I call that, and the growth mindset.
Thank you, Dr. Sumitra. I mean, that's brilliant, right? I agree with you. Digital fluency and data fluency probably are now becoming hygiene factors, and you can't replace them anymore. Everybody just needs to have them as their strong suit. And equally, I agree with you. The growth mindset is important, because I was reading the other day, the two biggest skills you're going to require as not just teachers, but as leaders, is the ability to handle ambiguity and the ability to master the social fabric, right? And that is really what growth mindset is about, right? Being resilient and being able to manage yourself in this VUCA environment, volatile, uncertain, conflict environment. And also the ability to master social fabric, not just over the physical medium, but also the digital medium. So fascinating how things are changing so rapidly. And Isra, I'd really like to put the same question to you, because you have probably the deepest or the most firsthand experience on this, because you're dealing with teachers every single day. So tell us, what do you think are the essential digital skills for the 21st century teachers?
Hello, everyone. Actually, this is a very, very good question. And I think that I totally agree with Dr. Sumitra about what she said. And I want to add another thing, which is also called the digital competence. Digital competence, which means that you need to be confident. Teachers lack confidence in using digital technologies. Some of them have the digital skills, but unfortunately, they are not confident enough to use it, or they don't know how to implement it properly in the classroom. So they need to, by competency, I mean that there has to be a combination of knowledge, skills, and attitude together, okay, toward implementing digital technologies into classrooms. Actually, there is like an experiment that happened already in Europe in 2007. I think we can learn from it. The European framework for the digital competence of educators, it's called the DigiComp EDU. They created something that is aimed for educators, starting from early childhood up to university teachers. So from early childhood educators until adult educators. When they did this framework, they had some research done first, and they found out that almost 40% of the Europeans have very, very low digital skills, and almost 42 of those, they have no digital skills at all. And they noticed that those 42% actually are jobless. They are unemployed. So it's not only about teachers. This is about the whole world. We have to look at it from a new perspective, that whatever we had in the past, it's not going to come back again. This is something for sure. And the digital skills are going to be a must now to be employed in any field. So the digital framework, actually, getting back to teachers now, is looking at 5 main areas for educators. They are looking for information and data literacy, communication and collaboration, digital content creation, safety, like the internet safety, and problem-solving skills. So they are looking at these skills and they are trying to help or support teachers develop those areas in order to be digitally confident enough, digitally literate enough, so that they can use technology properly in classrooms. Because what I see with most teachers is they know different apps, they know different websites, but unfortunately they implement it in an improper way, or sometimes it doesn't serve the target or the goal that they are actually looking for to achieve by the end of a certain session or lesson or even term. So this is the most important thing: giving teachers confidence and trying to support them with, as I said, developing those 5 areas that I just mentioned. And I think this would be something that we can start from. This can be a starting point where we can actually support teachers. Another thing is teaching strategies. Most teachers know all teaching strategies. They have learned it some way at some point of their lives, but still they don't know how to develop it or to implement it somehow in a digital classroom. So this is another thing also that we need to look at. How can we, I don't want to say manipulate, but how can we use or reuse the teaching strategies in digital classrooms in order to get the proper classroom management? Because one of the things that Dr. Hanan said earlier, that teachers feel that they lose control over their classrooms. So this is another thing, knowing those strategies and how to implement them in a digital or a virtual classroom will help them to understand or to get a grasp over a virtual classroom, and they can manage it properly.
Thank you so much, Isra. That was very insightful, especially some of the sort of developments you told us in the rest of the world. So I'd like to now turn over to Dr. Jalal. Dr. Jalal, would you switch on your camera as well, please? And welcome, of course, to the webcast.
Yeah, hi, how are you?
Very good. Good to have you here. So, what is your take, Dr. Jalal, on, has blended learning given a shot in the arm to flipped classroom concept? And if so, then how's that happened, right? Do we really see the flipped classroom taking place now?
Yeah, first, good morning to everyone, and thank you for having me here. Basically, people get sometimes confused between the blended learning and the flipping class, where the blended learning is a combination from the online things with the regular traditional classroom, while in the flipped classroom is where the teacher or the professor gives the authority to the students to go and dig deeper on that learning things and bring it back to him. Yes, I could say that we are not getting away from the traditionals. We will come to go to classroom later after the pandemic goes away, but we will say that we have the new learning system. We call it version 2. Let's call it version 2, where it's a combination between the blending learning, between the flipping classroom, where everything can be practiced. Before, the blended learning it's very hard to apply, where most of the people, they are not expected to have online courses, while now they are acceptable anywhere. Most of the classroom now switch to online, and it is true that the flipping classroom, it's become arm and a core business for the blended learning with this combination.
Thank you, Dr. Jalal. I think you're absolutely right. Sometimes people get confused between blended learning and flipped classroom being the same thing. But in reality, blended learning is just setting the stage for the flipped classroom, and then it's upon the teacher to create that environment through this new technology medium to allow the students to go and dictate their own journey outside of the virtual environment. And then when they come back, it becomes a space of cohabiting a learning space, and for the students to actually do peer-to-peer learning, peer-to-peer assessment, and so on. And really, the teacher just becomes the orchestrator. So thank you for your insights on that. Hanan, I'd like to come back to a few things that Isra was speaking about earlier, and about this whole competence side. So, how, in terms of digital competence, right? So, how do you think school leaders, especially, can help teachers overcome the initial hesitancy or self-doubt on teaching in this new online environment?
One aspect, I think it's really all the points that were mentioned are all very valid actually, and I totally agree that this competence is not just, it's completely different now. It has been redefined again. It's one of those concepts that is redefined. And when we talk about competence, it's not just how digital savvy are the teachers or how many softwares they can use, as Isra, I think, touched on that. And basically what we, as leaders, what we want to do, first of all, if we really want to provide teachers with support, is to be with them in the same experience. So as a teacher, I need to model what I'm telling my teachers. I actually, what we did in our school, I started because all the teachers were using Google Classroom, for instance. So I started a Google Classroom as a teacher, and I had all the teachers as my students. And I had them see this from a student point of view. And I also managed to go through their experience and actually understand what difficulties they are going through. Because when we talk about things theoretically as leaders, sometimes we just tend to talk about things very theoretically, just how it's written in the book. But when it comes to reality, it's a completely different story. And I find that this has helped a lot to work on that confidence, building their confidence. Because now I understand, I sympathize, I empathize, and also they understand what their students go through. When I tell them, when I send them two different, for instance, worksheets and ask them to start right away with one, they're not sure which one I'm talking about because I'm not in front of them. So I think it has helped a lot when a leader, first of all, models what they say. This is a very important aspect. The other thing is promoting that learning posture and learning attitude. So we are not there to see if you're still doing a good job or you're not really doing a good job. We have created those support accounts for HODs, for principals, so that they can go in the digital classroom of their teachers and not to observe them and evaluate, but mainly to see, how to provide them with some feedback on how are they doing, because it's very lonely in there. You're sitting, you're looking at a screen. Some of your students, they switch on camera, some they don't, and you don't really have full control over whether they can switch the camera or no, because you don't know what's happening in their home. So, and then, even when you say a joke, you don't know if it's funny enough that they laughed or no, unless one kid would write ha ha ha, or, you'll not really know what's happening. So it could be very lonely in a classroom. That's why it's important to have those leaders actually go in the classroom and be with the teacher, provide them with that feedback, and understand the environment, what are they going through. Another thing that I find that was very important is decision making, because what happened when the pandemic hit, all the leaders, they got together, they started making all these decisions. Okay, this is what we're doing. And those decisions, they're coming from, again, a theoretical point of view, very much theoretical. So having that bottom-up approach for decision making by leaders, it's very important, because we need to know what do the teachers need. Even if we were to decide on one platform or the other, one software or the other, it is the teachers actually who should take the first and initial step on identifying if this is going to work for them or not going to work for them. So I feel that being in with the teachers in field, as they say, is really what would help most, to help us to scaffold them and provide them the support that they need, and also providing this team approach. So it's really important that, because we miss out as a teacher, you miss out on community, the feeling of a school community. We don't have this anymore. We don't have that mental and collegial support as much as we do when we had it face to face, because we don't see each other. We can only see each other when we wearing masks and keeping a social distance for a very short time. So how can leaders provide that space for teachers to reflect, assess what is happening, reflect on what's happening, and then come up with a team approach for for problem solving? And that is, I think, these aspects will definitely help leaders to provide the needed support for teachers.
Fascinating, Hanan. I mean, I loved your pragmatic approach on, just changing, being in the other person's shoes, right? And just running that classroom from your side and having the teachers attend as a student. So simple yet so effective. Fantastic. Uh, Isra, you spoke very eloquently and about this issue a little while earlier. So, what is your top advice for a school leader, to help teachers manage this era of slight uncertainty or doubt or self-doubt, and how to overcome that?
Well, I totally agree with Ms. Hanan on what she said earlier about having leaders involved to understand the needs of the teachers and the challenges that they face. What she said is a perfect application of transformational leadership. But what we need also to implement as leaders is transformative leadership. Transformative leadership means that we need to, as leaders, to change the way we think about things. So leaders need to start with themselves first by changing the type of leadership that they are using. Like the most commonly used type of leadership worldwide, or at least in the Middle East, is the instructional leadership, where the leader is the source of information, the source of instructions, telling teachers to do this, do that, and that's it. But now we need to move into the form of kinetic leadership model, which, as we said earlier, it should be either like a blend of both transformational and transformative leadership. Having said that, it's very, very important to provide teachers with tools as trial first. So they need to trial, let's say the LMS, the learning management systems that the schools use. Teachers need to try it out first, and then they can create a survey about it. Okay, and then from the results of the survey, they can understand whether this is suitable for the teachers as well as their students or not, and then they can decide if either it can be used or not. Another thing is providing the proper PD sessions. Like there are hundreds of PD sessions out there, but as I said earlier, it needs to focus on digital competence. Those are the two criteria I think leaders should look at now when they are searching for the proper PD sessions for their teachers. Digital competence, are these PD sessions like improving or enhancing their digital competence or not? And the second thing is it providing them with the proper use of tools? Like it's not just a PD session to use Google or a PD session to use Kahoot, or no, we need to understand the concept first of online classroom management. Then we can implement the digital technology during this understanding. Another thing is also, this is something that has been implemented in Europe, which is creating a self-assessment tool for teachers to understand their or to follow up with their progress in their digital skills. So there has to be some kind of assessment that is being created. It can be created like per school or can be per district, depends like on the school system, where teachers can follow up their digital progression. One last thing, also I think that leaders can support teachers with is when they're attending to give feedback, attending their online classes to give feedback or to monitor what they're doing, it's very, very important to create a rewarding system. Rewards goes a long way, not only with children, also with adults. So it's very, very important to have a rewarding system. It doesn't have to be in the form of money. At least like having a shout out for the teacher in a meeting, or giving them stars, and then maybe by the end of the year we can get a prize or something for the teachers with the highest number of stars. So having such kind of motivation to the teachers, this will get them actually moving and going, because at a certain point of time, the teacher would simply ask himself or herself, why are we doing this? I'm so tired. Let's just stop here and just keep on repeating what we already know. So to keep them going, we need to motivate them as much as we can.
Thank you, Isra. I think great suggestion on the gamification and reward side of things. I think that probably is truly helpful for everybody. The inner child would come out on that, right? So, Sumitra, I have a question for you. With so much technology coming in, it is but natural that we're going to see AI and ML following suit, right? So, how will AI impact the life of teachers tomorrow? What is your take on that?
Well, AI is something is a promising technology. That's for sure.
Isra, if I may interrupt, the question is for Dr. Sumitra.
Oh, I'm sorry, because I just heard Isra. So yeah, okay, thank you.
No worries. Our names are quite similar at the end. Yeah.
Sorry,
sure.
Dr. Sumitra.
No worries at all. No worries. You have such a wealth of knowledge, yeah, to share. And I'm not a teacher, so it's, you're probably in a better position than me. But, my view on this is, I think it's going to help teachers. I think AI will help teachers in the sense that it will help teachers to make learning more tailored, right? And what do I mean by that? I mean, today, in many countries, at least public education is a one size fits all, right? And more often than not, it's because of all the tasks that the teacher has to do, and it's extremely difficult to assess one person's performance and to be able to tailor to that one person's learning style, ability, and so on. And if you think about the way we consume content today, the way we consume knowledge today, it's very tailored, right? For the most part, other than an education system, it's very tailored. So if you think about Netflix, Amazon, even Coursera, online learning platforms, you kind of pick what you need to learn, right? And I think in a similar way, AI will help teachers by taking over more of the mundane tasks that currently doesn't allow them to do this tailored education, which means today they have to mark examination papers, they have to make sure that everybody is having the same understanding and all of that, and it's very hard for them to determine or understand the learning styles and patterns of each and every individual child. But AI can help them do that, right? And AI will also help them to do all the other things like hopefully mark examination papers and take attendance and all the other stuff which really is low value add part of their work, and be able to focus on the data that they're able to collect, the profiles that they're dealing with, and hopefully deliver a more tailored education, which I think would be more engaging. I mean, I have two teenagers of my own, and when I look at the way they consume content and media, I think we really need a more tailored approach. And AI, I believe, can help to do this. Just the way AI today forces us to shop for things, and it forces you down a path, right? Depending on your preferences. So similarly, or your style. So similarly, hopefully AI will also bring out the best of education by allowing and freeing up teachers to do that kind of work better, to do their work better.
Well, that's true, Dr. Sumitra. I mean, I think e-retailers have shown us the way that the omni-channel experience is truly king now. And if we think of students as consumers of content, then we need to make it available to them in whichever pace, style, and speed they prefer, right? So that whole flexibility and that whole personalization and that context will come in through AI and ML. And I think we'll finally be teaching to the power of one, to that one individual, how he or she would like to learn. So I think that's, sets us up very well for our next few questions, because we've got just 8 minutes on the clock left, and we've got some great questions coming in. So the first question is, will GAFAM take over teachers? And, for those who might not be familiar with the term, GAFAM is a way of talking about big tech, right? The top 4 or 5 tech companies. And the question is, will these take over the teachers? And maybe I'll give it a first shot, right? So I don't think that big tech will take over teachers per se, but I think what big tech will do is collaborate far more with academia to create some, mega universities in a sense, right? Because big tech is going to bring this whole reach. It's going to bring the power of personalization, like we spoke about. It's going to bring this whole brand allure and this real world knowledge, right? But the minute you marry that with elite academia, then you're going to bring the rigor, the research, the brand respect, the credentials of these tech universities or these big universities, right? So the minute you marry these two powerful forces, I think you're going to start seeing education at scale and education at a available modularly, right? So it's going to become elastic. It's going to get consumed in the way the student wants. It's going to become more transparent, and the transaction is going to be built over trust, because eventually all of this is about trust, right? And it's going to become far more easy as well. So the effort score is going to go down. And like I was talking about the omni-channel part, I think that's what's going to happen, right? So I think this whole omni-channel experience is going to come in when big tech and academia will marry each other. And I also feel that it is not new. Industry and academia collaborations have been happening, but because of COVID and because of this cost pressure that universities are feeling right now, this will multiply exponentially. I think we have a great follow-on question as well, which is, will Sophia the robo or be the next teacher, or will there be humanoid teachers? And maybe Sumitra, you want to take this on just as an extension of your AI question?
Sure, yeah. No, I don't think it will be the next. At least it could be an assistant to the teacher. And I think the teachers in the group are probably better equipped to answer this. But I personally think it could be an assistant to the teacher, because, the teaching part is still a very human, it's empathetic, it's adaptable, it's the ability to iterate, to learn on the spot, and I don't think Sophia can replace that human touch that a teacher brings to the class. So probably as an assistant, right? The challenge though is, if we have teachers who are teaching like robots today, then yes, it could take over their jobs. And so that's where I think the things we spoke about earlier, the growth mindset and the ability to just relate to people, and the students' needs, that's going to be more important, to bring that human touch and the empathy and so on.
True. Would somebody else, maybe Dr. Jalal, would you like to contribute to this question as well?
Yeah, sure. Basically, as she said earlier, it will not be collaborated. It will be collaborated. It will be assisted, and also it will be enhanced to the future of the learning, where people will get something new, and then it will be more knowledge than maybe the professor himself by giving the knowledge. But I will not expect it to be a robot teaching students class. No, I will not. I will expect to be more enhancement to the learning way.
Excellent.
I mean, you can think about it this way, when you get a IVR, call center, when you call a call center and something automated is talking to you, it can be very frustrating, So if you imagine children, I'm sure they'd want to have a sort of an instant response and, a more human response compared to talking to a robot. So I don't think they will be replaced.
Right. Dr. Jalal, I have one more thought for you to share with us.
Sure.
We always talk about teachers in terms of ICT skills, right? But in reality, we have two more constituents of the class, right? We have got the student and the IT organization sitting at the back, and we often forget that we need to get them as well ready, right? So, what are your views on that? Do you think they are already ready? Are we assuming right, or do we need to help them as well in this new tech-heavy environment?
Basically, that the IT is the backbone of all the learning that's happening and going on here. So without good infrastructure, believe me, the online learning in this COVID, it will not be happen. So a couple of countries have choose different methodology on these things. In our school, for example, what's happened is that it's basically we use the online learning 3 years ago. So when we use it 3 years ago, most of our students have the capability of getting the classes online, because what we did basically, we take all the general courses, right? And we ask the students in university not to come for these classes, but you have to attend 75% of the class online, and 25% of the class you have to come one class every 3 weeks.
Right.
So the students get to know it. So the IT is part of that. In order for us to have the IT to doing their job and to helping the teacher in doing that, they need to to make a couple of initiatives. These initiatives help them in understanding what the platform, how they use it, how they control it. Because as one of the speakers talks before, that the students sometimes try to put you on mute, try to take the camera, try to make fun because they didn't use to it. So the teacher need to have the skills to manage his class as it is in person with them, but online. So this is the most important thing that I think the IT is the core business of the learning.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Dr. Jalal. And I think we have sort of run out of time. So you've been such a fabulous panel. I have learned so much from you today, as I'm sure would our audience have too. And at this stage, I'm going to hand back to Fahad to close the session. So Fahad, back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayank. Thank you very much. And thank you, panel, for a fabulous discussion on ICT and the future teacher, let's put it that way. Interesting conversations about big tech, interesting conversations about the future of teachers as Dr. Sumitra spoke about it, the AI aspect as well. Good discussions from Hanan, good discussions from Isra and Dr. Jalal, and also good discussion from you, Mayank. So thank you very much.